Grief doesn't always look like tears. Sometimes it looks like distraction, going silent, or even laughter. In this video, we're going to unpack what are some of the signs that someone near to you might be secretly struggling with grief. And how do we distinguish between those signs and regular stress or sadness? And lastly, what can we do personally if someone close to us is being affected by grief? Hey there, I'm Kelly Nielsen, and having walked through my own tremendous grief and loss story, I recovered a proven faith-based, neuroscience-informed process that has helped hundreds of people recover from grief and loss. So let's dive into today's topic. What are the 5 most common signs that someone might be struggling with grief? First of all, like we said in the intro, grief doesn't always look like sadness. So don't assume that you're going to see someone overtly crying or talking about their loss all the time. There's a lot more subtle signs that people might be carrying. The first place we want to look is behavioral shifts. Is someone who's always been on time or prompt all of a sudden running late? Are they acting different in their day-to-day life? Do you notice that they're maybe more irritable or more withdrawn than they used to be? All of those behavioral shifts are signs that they may be struggling with grief. Secondly, do you see changes in body language or tone? If you find again that somebody is withdrawing or holding to themselves, is their body language looking down and inward often? Do they just feel distant when you're in conversations? Those could be signs that they are dealing with grief. The next area, number 3, is signs in their daily routines. If someone is isolating a lot, if they are using a lot of numbing or distraction, if they're watching several hours of TV, they're not as engaged or connected to social activities that they used to enjoy, those are all warning signs that they're dealing with grief. The fourth area we want to look at is emotional tells. As we mentioned, we all expect grief to be someone openly talking about their loss or crying or being upset, but quite often the emotional tells that we see in people that might be struggling with grief are irritability, kind of lashing out in anger. You'll find that they have a lot less emotional bandwidth to work with, or just completely being numb and distracted. That is actually a very serious warning sign, because that means they are so inwardly withdrawn that they're no longer engaging with the folks around them. So that is a telltale sign that they might be dealing with grief. And then the last 5th area is your own gut. If you know and love this person, if this is someone who is in your day-to-day life, a coworker or a friend or a family member, and if there's something in your gut that's telling you something's off, that they might be struggling more than they're letting on, I want to encourage you, don't ignore that. Pay attention to that gut signal, because if you are in close proximity to them and you know them really well, and if you have a feeling that something's off, there's a good chance that you're right. So don't ignore that. So here's the tricky part though. Knowing how to recognize the signs is just one thing, but how do we distinguish whether this is actually grief that's bothering them, or is it just everyday stress or regular sadness? How do we distinguish the difference? Let's talk about that a little bit. The first thing is the depth of the pain. Everyday stress and even sadness tends to be a surface level thing. So if someone is irritated and there's an external reason why they're irritated, one of the key indicators is that once that external situation removes itself, then the stress should go away. So for example, if someone is irritated in traffic and they are snappy and short because they're in traffic, once they're out of the traffic, theoretically, that irritation should lift, the stress level should lift. One of the signs that it's actually grief and not everyday stress is that that irritation level kind of never goes away. They're irritated in just about every situation, and the external circumstances don't seem to help or appease it. Another distinguishing factor between stress and everyday sadness or everyday encounters and grief is the length of time. Like we said, the grief tends to be a much longer lasting, much more holistic experience. It lasts longer. So if someone is experiencing something, they're just off for a day or two, that's something. But when you find that the person is in a prolonged period of withdrawal or a prolonged period of irritability, that might be a sign that it's actually grief you're dealing with, underlying grief. Another area, another way to distinguish the two is, again, whether it's external circumstance or if they're making comments about themselves and about their life, right? If they say, this coworker is bothering me or this external circumstance is bothering me. Whereas if they're saying things like, I don't know how to go on, I don't know what my place is in the world, the things that they are verbalizing tend to be bigger and kind of more existential. That is a huge indicator that what they're dealing with is actually grief, and we want to point them in the direction of help, especially if people talk about a loss of identity or loss of purpose. So often when people lose loved ones, it can be an identity crisis, and we can feel like we lose our place in the world or knowing our purpose in the world. And so that is a definite, not only is it an indicator of grief, but it's kind of a red flag crisis type level sign that someone really needs to get some help and support. Another sign distinguishing between grief versus just kind of everyday stress is brain signs, right? When someone's grieving, we are cognitively not at our best. We're actually cognitively impaired. So if you notice that the person is forgetful, if they have a hard time putting words to their thoughts, if they seem sort of absent-minded, or they're having difficulty focusing, all of those signs tend to point to grief, and they may be struggling with grief as opposed to just everyday stress. And then again, lastly, one of our ones is expression versus suppression. Oftentimes, if people are just stressed, again, they're going to vent, they're going to talk about it, they're going to maybe complain about it, they're going to talk about that external thing that's bothering them. But a very hidden kind of warning sign of someone really struggling with grief is that they tend to suppress their feelings. They're not going to talk about it openly. If you ask them how they're doing, they're going to say fine. They may be, like we said earlier, doing a lot of numbing or distracting activities. Basically, the feelings that they're feeling are too much for them to handle. And so they're suppressing or numbing or distracting. So if you see that happening, if someone is not talking about their feelings at all or is uncomfortable with answering questions like that, that might be a sign that they're actively suppressing their feelings. And that is a sign that they're dealing with grief. Now, if you're seeing these signs in loved ones and you're lost as to what to do, I want to encourage you to check out the link in the descriptions. There's some helpful tools for you there. But lastly, we want to kind of shift gears now that we see these signs in someone we loved. We've determined that this is grief that's showing up in their life, right? It's not just stress, everyday stress. What do we do? As a friend or a loved one, how do we show up and help and support our loved one that's grieving? And the biggest thing I want to impress upon you is that your presence is the most important thing, right? Your presence and not pressure to fix the problem, not pressure even to point them to resources or things that you think might be helpful. Just your loving, supportive presence is going to make the biggest impact and be the most helpful thing for your friend or family member that might be grieving. We want to make sure that they know that we're here, that we see them, that we're here to support them at whatever pace they would like to go and whatever that looks like. One of the most significant memories that I have after my son passed away, and I'll never forget this as long as I live, the first day I went back to work, which was just a couple weeks after he passed away, I went back to work and had all of the awkward exchanges and conversations, right? Everybody looking at me with the sad eyes and coming in and, heartfeltly sharing their condolences and whatever words they wanted to share with me. But the person that made the most lasting impression on me was a coworker of mine that worked in a different department. And he walked into my office and he walked up to me, he stared me dead in the eyes and just gave me a big hug. That probably lasted for a minute. He just gave me a hug. He didn't say anything. When we were done hugging, he stepped back and looked me dead in the eye again. And then he turned around and walked out of my office. And in that moment, I felt so seen. I felt so supported. Without a word being exchanged, he was telling me with his eye contact and his body language and the physical hug that he saw me, he was hurting with me and for me, and that he was there for me. And that is a lasting memory that will stay with me forever. So I just want to encourage you that sometimes we feel like we need to have the words to say, right? And we feel the need to want to fix it. It's very hard and very painful to watch people that we love struggle or hurt or be in pain, no matter what it is, whether it's a breakup, or grief or any kind of problem in their life. And so our tendency can be to want to fix it for them or want to tell them what they need to do to feel better or be better. And I want to encourage you not to do that. Unfortunately, grief is a solo sport. Like, recovering from grief is a very personal journey. It's a very intense journey, and people need to go at their own pace. So again, the best thing you can do is be a consistent support. I want to talk a little bit about the consistency piece of it, because when someone's grieving, their brain gets jumbled and overwhelmed and overloaded with a lot of different chemicals and feelings and confusion. They're exhausted. And one of the things that we encourage with our clients is establishing routine and consistency as much as possible. That actually helps on a neurological level. The more consistency and predictability you can create in your routine and in your environment, it's going to help everything in your grieving friend's brain sort of calm down. So the more that you can be a consistent source of support, that you can show up consistently, and their brain and eventually their heart can trust that you're going to be there and that you're a consistent thing in their lives, that's going to be very beneficial for them. And when they're ready, they will find you to be a safe place to come for help when they have questions or when they're ready to look for resources or additional support. Hopefully you have positioned yourself to be that person that they can turn to. The next thing we want to encourage is to ask open-ended, probing questions. So many times people tend to say or ask two things: how are you doing? And what can I do for you? Or let me know what I can do for you. Those are really difficult questions for grieving people to answer. And most people, when they say, how are you doing? They're just going to say, oh, I'm fine. Especially if they're in the suppression game, they're not going to admit that anything's going on. So I want to encourage you to ask a probing, open-ended question. Like, what was the hardest part of your day today or your week this week, right? A question that really invites them to share with you things that they might be having difficulties with. And the telltale, let me know if you need anything, or I'm here to help. Their brains are overwhelmed and flooded. They don't know what kind of help they need. So instead of asking that question, just offer to do something. Anything that you can do to take things off their plate is helpful. Whether you can cook a meal or clean their house or help drive them for an errand, think about things that you can just simply do for them that aren't super complicated, that you don't even necessarily need permission, you can just do for them. That's tremendously helpful. And if you are going to do something that requires their input or permission, do your best to make it a yes, no answer, or say, I'm going to leave a meal at your front door. You can feel free to eat it, freeze it, do whatever you like. Just make things as easy as possible, because again, their cognitive reasoning, their ability to make decisions, their ability to articulate, to even know what they need or what kind of help they need, and then articulate it, has all been compromised. So anything that you can do to fill in the blanks for those during that time is tremendously helpful. And then the last thing is to have some tools ready if and when they do open up and say that they're looking for help, that they're open to help. I'm going to offer two things. Number one, have some tools on hand that you've researched or things that you think might be helpful. But secondly, especially if you have walked through loss yourself, feel free to share the things that were helpful to you. Whether it was exercising or journaling or a specific book or something that you found helpful, share those things with the person. We always learn best from people who have been in our shoes or are familiar with what we're walking through. So those are the things that I would recommend in terms of helping a loved one that we've identified is in fact dealing with grief. It's not just regular stress. They are dealing with grief. Here are some things that you can do for them. So spotting these signs and offering them some help is just the beginning. But if you want to know more help on how to help yourself or someone else heal from loss, tap the video here where I will reveal what really happens with a loved one when they're grieving and how moving on does not mean forgetting.